Thanks for tuning in to a Saturday night edition of our NASCAR coverage here on Proline TV. I've got to figure out a good name for this, but it's our NASCAR starting lineup report. That's as good as a name as I can come up with as we take a look at the race action that happened earlier today at Texas Motor Speedway for practice and qualifying. So if you were with us on Tuesday, and hopefully you are, you see a link in the description of this video, which gets you to the show that we conducted on Tuesday. CJ Radoon, our lead NASCAR analyst, of course, is with me each week, and we go over everything that you need to know about the race in depth. And it's definitely awesome to get another opinion, especially an expert opinion like CJ. And we go over a whole bunch of stuff, including key trends and all sorts of things that really prepare you for the race early in the week, as well as trying to take advantage of odds. Sometimes we advise you to wait until Saturday for qualifying and practice because it's really important based on the history of the track and what qualifying and practice means to the winners of the race. This is a particular week that definitely involves that because of the fact that if you looked at the last three, now we're only going to go back to the last three because for whatever reason, and it didn't start with the next gen, because even though it's been one race, there was a race in 2022. The first race in next gen had seemed pretty normal. And what I mean by that is, if you take a look at the last three winners at Texas Motor Speedway, you are looking at drivers that have not qualified in the top 10 or anywhere close. And only one driver in the last 3 years, that was William Byron in 2023, practiced in the top 10, but he also qualified 18th. Last year, Joey Logano qualified 27th and practiced 31st. And it was Chase Elliott in 2024 who qualified 24th and practiced 15th. So what does all of that mean? Well, kind of means that anything can happen. But let's try to go deeper into those numbers just over the last couple of years. So, for instance, last year, even though a Ford won it with Joey Logano, he didn't lead a whole lot of laps. So it wasn't like Ford had a great weekend. They were just okay. But in reality, they were actually better than Toyota last year. Chevy, meanwhile, were definitely the car to beat, the manufacturer to beat. They were the fastest in practice, the fastest in qualifying, and they really, matter of fact, they even led the most laps in the race. So Chevy was the best. Ford was definitely second, then you had Toyota. In 2024, really, it was a lot more tightly contested between the three, but Chevy, once again, was the best. They led 150 laps overall between all the drivers, and Chase Elliott won the race. In 2023, again, a Chevy won with William Byron winning. And once again, Chevy was at the top. They were really good in both qualifying and practice. And, of course, they got the win and ended up leading second most laps. Toyota led the most laps that day, but it was Chevy still leading 115 combined laps. Also, keep in mind that 2023 race, and maybe this is, I don't know, again, we're looking for all sorts of trends that can help us out. That race was in September. So the last two races have been at this time of year in the spring. And so I don't know really how much more that tells us other than, again, that both races, neither winning driver qualified or practiced in the top 10. Now, here's something interesting in the last three races. How about this? We had 13 different drivers lead laps in all three races. That's really strange because there's a lot of one laps, 5 laps. And what a coincidence. 13 different drivers led laps the last 3 years in each of those races. So I don't know what that means. I don't think it means anything. But I also think that's just, something that's pretty interesting. Okay, I can throw that out. All right, now, speaking of Chevy, they have been the dominant manufacturer here. They've won 5 of the last 7 races. Toyota's only won 1 in the last 8. Ford just won in the last 7, even though they're coming off the win with Joey Logano last year. Now, this is what we were talking about, really, regarding the odds, and we're going to get into that because that really is what shapes everything. But the last 3 winners, their average starting position is 23rd. Even if you go back to last 7, it's still 14.8. So it's not just this little small size. You're not in the top 12. You're not in the top 6 rows on average to start in the last 7, pretty much the last 6 years. I think that's about it. Okay, now we talked about this last week, and this trend continued, which was, I think it's now 12 straight winning drivers at Talladega have been different. 12 straight. Well, Texas has one of these as well. 9 straight. Okay, so here are the drivers that have won the last 9 races at Texas, meaning if you think this trend continues, just like it did continue for Talladega, you don't want any of these drivers. Logano, Elliott, Byron, Reddick, Larson, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Denny Hamlin. All right, so that's up to you on how you want to handle that. Now, let's pop up. Why don't we? Where are we? It's any particular one? Yeah, let's start with starting lineup. Oh, yeah, let's start with the starting lineup because I tell you what, practice is going to mean pretty much nil. And that's because you had, coming off of Talladega, you had a lot of the drivers that ended up with bad results. And when you have bad results, what happens is you're going to end up going to Group 1 in practice. So that's why you normally see a lot of the weaker drivers in Group 1 because they normally have bad results. So you had a lot of good drivers in Group 1 today. So really didn't, and there was a big divide too. So with the big divide, matter of fact, you have to go. Denny Hamlin, who was 7th in practice, he was the fastest driver in Group 2. That just gives you an indication of how Group 1 was faster than Group 2. And that did not mean Group 1's drivers were faster. So you're going to have to take a little look at that when you're breaking things down. Let's draw a couple of lines here. I want to draw a line. Well, first of all, here's the top 10. And remember, staying in the top 10 at Texas doesn't matter much, but here it is. All right, now let's go down to here, top 15, where William Byron is. Why are we doing that? Because that's the average, 14.8, last 7 winners. Okay, so that's their starting position. That's where William Byron is. Now, if you want to go by the last 3, then we can go all the way down to here where Joey Logano is. That's the average there, 23rd, Joey Logano. Okay. Now, what we're really going to do, though, of course, is let everybody in because anybody can win starting anywhere at this track. And that's going to help out drivers like Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, and even Bubba Wallace or Austin Dillon. As you can see here, okay, problems in practice. Bubba spun out. Now, he was in Group 1, and he was about 5th fastest at the time that he spun out. So he was going okay. But he spun out, and there you go. Austin, and that's why no practice. Austin Dillon, meanwhile, had to change an engine. So, actually, no qualifying, I meant, for Bubba, and no qualifying for Dillon. So there you go. That's why you get the zeros down there. And that's why they'll be starting way back. But if you're going to start way back anywhere but a super speedway, I think Texas is a good place to start way back because you have a shot. Okay, now, as far as the manufacturers, once again, Chevy was fast. They had 3 of the top 6, including the fastest. You see there Carson Hocevar, the top 2 actually on the front row. Toyota had 5 of the top 10 in qualifying. That's pretty strong. Ford only 1 of the top 12, and that was Chris Buescher, as you can see there, in 3rd. All right, now let's take out our, where do we have it? I think I already moved these into, have I not moved these into position yet? Shame on me. Let's move them into position. Let's get our top 10. Again, keep in mind, we go by the top 10 And then the updated odds. First of all, here are the contenders, as you can see. And now I'm going to put in the top 10. Okay, there you go. All right. And those are the updated odds. Let's get that in there. All right. Yeah, Andrew, I will say this. I think I speak for a lot of people, including my favorite driver, Ryan Blaney. I hate this track anyway. No matter what the situation was, this track is awful. And look, I put this together because I think it best exemplifies what we're going to be dealing with here. This is a track that is boring in the early stages because you're going to get dominating drivers early. That's been the MO. A driver will wind up leading a ton of laps early. One driver usually eats up the laps in the first half of the race. Then when we get to the later stages, and especially with the restarts, because they become extremely important, restarts late in the race. So the more cautions you wind up getting, and you're going to get some at this track late, then the restarts are going to be really important because you can't pass on this track. All right? And so you're going to get aggressive driving. You got 2 tire stops, 4 tire stops. You got the terrible bump in turn 3. And that is going to make sometimes it makes the finish just potluck. You just have no idea who's going to win. And a lot of times it's not a driver that leads a lot of laps. That's the guy who dominated early. So for live wagering, really what you should try and do is take advantage of that. Just like we're going to try to take advantage of it today, where we're going to try to look at value and say, okay, look, if you've watched this channel long enough and even this show long enough, it's all about handicapping is always about value. And whether it's futures for a Super Bowl or with a race in NASCAR. And so this is a track where history says in the last 3 years, we can get value. And until that changes, I'm just going to keep going that way. And so we do have good value definitely today that we want to go over. So actually, here's a question for Andrew and anybody else that is tuning in right now. What do you think? Do you think Texas is the worst track in the series right now, in the Cup Series right now? And if not, what's the worst track out there? I'd like to know. Okay, so here you go. Carson Hocevar. You've no value here whatsoever. Not only is he coming off his first win, which, by the way, he was one of our picks last week, and we are now over, because again, what we do is each week we do 3 picks, and we value them. Our first pick is worth $60, our second pick is worth $30, and our last pick is worth $10. And that's every week. And each of us do it, and we take the odds from Tuesday. So, because that's when we wager on NASCAR, and then we'll try to wager on Saturday if we have to, or Sunday. So I think I've hit on 4 races this year. Keep this in mind, only 4. Believe it's only 4, and yet I'm up like 300 based on that formula. And that's why, and that's why I think this has actually been a pretty good season for handicapping. It's wide open, with the exception of Reddick winning and putting on like a type of performance you would normally see from a Kyle Larson or a Denny Hamlin at this stage of the season. Most of the other winners have been, pretty good value drivers regarding the odds. So I think it's been really refreshing as far as that's concerned. And I think today is a perfect example. But again, getting back to Hocevar, he's going to try to win 2 straight after he's never won a Cup race. So how hard that is. He was 70-1 in this race last year, and he was 20-1 on Tuesday, and you're getting worse odds now. And his average starting position in his 3 Cup races is 12th. His average finish is close to 17th. Now, he did lead, get this, 22 laps from the pole last year. That's right. Back-to-back poles for Carson Hocevar, but he still finished 24th. Okay, Daniel Suarez. What about Daniel? Is he good value? Because you got good odds there at 35-1, and he was only 50 on Tuesday, so I think that's a pretty good, fair deal. But yes, Daniel Suarez is a good value. He's a good fantasy driver. We're going to get into our picks, our DFS picks later on. He has 3 career top 5s here. His average starting position in his last 9 races here is 17.4. His average finish is 11.2. So he's gaining about 6 spots a race. And in his last 3 years here, all top 10s, 10th, 5th, and 8th. So Daniel Suarez is an excellent play this week, both at 35-1 and for fantasy. Next up, Chris Buescher. And Buescher, his odds were 22-1. They're down to 14. But Buescher has been awful here. I mean, there's no way I could touch Chris Buescher. I know he was good today, both in practice and qualifying. But has that mattered? And when you look at a driver that has never scored a top 10 here in 16 appearances and has only led 2 laps in his career, I'll be taking a pass on a 14-1 driver with those history numbers. Denny Hamlin, he's sitting there at 5-1, so we're getting one of the favorites here. And he was really good today. He might have been the best driver today, Denny. But he's 5-1, and we definitely don't want to take any top drivers this week. We just don't. I mean, if they win, you bow to them. Thank you very much. Good job. I mean, nothing we can do about it. But this is one of those weeks where, because of the inconsistency about the track and, well, I should say the volatility of the track and the inconsistency with the data and what's going on here, because of how crazy this track is, I just think it's a crazy race to down and take short odds drivers. I just don't think this is the week to do it. In his career, Denny has had a good history here, but this is a problem. Check this out. It is in his last 12 starts at Texas, his average starting position is 6.2. His average finish in those 12 is 18.2. He's losing 12 spots a race on average at this track. And he's starting 4th. He's basically starting right around where his average is. And when the results say a lot different, and you're getting no value at 5-1. Matter of fact, he's only had 1 top 5 in his last 8 races at Texas. And his last 2 results are 38th and 30th. Chase Briscoe. And by the way, Denny was the odds-on favorite when the week started at 5-1, and he stays at 5-1. Chase Briscoe is down from 14-1. He's never led a lap here. 1 top 5. And here's some contradictory numbers, though. His average starting position is 22.8 out of his 5 races. Average finish is 12.6. He's basically gaining 10 positions a race. That's really good. But in his last 2 races, and remember, this has been in the spring, the last 2 years, he's lost 6 positions total. So it's just, and again, we're always trying to find some reasoning. And I don't know if it's because we're in the spring, but the fact is that his career numbers in 5 races say good fantasy. Last 2 years say not good. So you decide. Next up, Kyle Busch. Can we really think that Kyle Busch is going to win a race? I don't think so. And it would be great for the sport. And he's 50-1. He's now in the odds territory where it's almost like if he's going to start 5th, then I have to give it some consideration. But he was slow in practice, and he's been dominant here. He's like the best driver here out of every driver here in his career. He's led over 1,000 laps. He's got 4 wins. He's got 14 top 5s. in his last 3 races with the RCR group, he does only have 1 top 10, though. And that's been the story for Kyle Busch. So, I mean, look, you want to throw a buck on him, more power to you. I got no problem with it. But anything more than that, he just hasn't shown anything. Christopher Bell will start 7th. And Christopher is another driver that I remember when we talked about it on Tuesday. There's just no value. There's so many other possibilities around this odds range you can go with. Not to say Chris isn't a good contender, but I just don't see any value here. He has 3 career top 5s out of 7, which is nice, but he's only led 6 laps in his career here. And yeah, so nothing really that earth-shattering. His practice speeds were just 18th overall, 8th position in Group 2. Next up is Tyler Reddick, and look, if Reddick was a little bit better odds, I'd say why not? You just have to maybe keep going with him if he's going to be this hot. But 5-1, nah, again, not for a favorite this week. If he beats you, he beats you. And if you take a look at it, in his career, he does have a win. He won a few years ago. He was the first driver to win in the next gen stage in 2022, and he led 70 laps that day. The last 4 years, Reddick has led 36 or more laps in 3 of those 4 years with 2 top 10s and his win. Now, last year, he did not have a good race. And in his last 6 starts, and this was something that was real important that we said on Tuesday. This is like one of the most important things we talked about on Tuesday regarding I can't tell you what I'm going to do with Tyler Reddick until I see what's going on Saturday. And that's because if you take a look at Tyler Reddick's qualifying at Texas and his results, they mirror each other, meaning whenever he qualifies, he usually finishes at Texas. I shouldn't even say usually. It's 100%. It's just a matter of where. So 7th tells me he's probably going to finish in the top 7. But I don't know if I think I'd prefer a top 5 if I was going to bet on them to win based on his history. I still think he's a better choice than Denny Hamlin. Absolutely. Matter of fact, out of the favorites, he's the best one. So if you are going to go with a favorite, I would go with Tyler Reddick. And maybe we'll do that with our fantasy because you got to always put at least one of them in there. So he's definitely up there for consideration, no doubt. All right, Alex Bowman is not under consideration. Forget about Alex Bowman. He's 35-1. And the reason you could forget about Bowman, the only thing he has going for him is the team he's on, and he is coming off a good finish last week. But he was 22-1 in this race last year. That should tell you something. He has only 2 top 5s out of 16 career races, and his average start is 18.5. His average finish is 25.4. Not good at all. So I don't see anything here to be excited about with Alex Bowman, who did not have a good practice run at all. He was about the slowest driver, one of the slowest drivers in practice. Now you have Ty Gibbs at 16-1. So we get good odds here. He was a little bit slower in practice, but when you take a look at Gibbs, and again, the odds definitely stick out. We see a driver that has had some interesting moments here, but for the most part, the results have not been good. He's never had a top 10. He's only led 5 laps. His average starting position is 7.0, but his average finish is 22.3. So you want to know his combined losing positions in his 4 races? It's 71. So the good thing is, once again, he's starting in the top 10. He's finding ways to qualify well here. But how many times do I have to say it? Qualifying just doesn't matter here. And it definitely doesn't matter to Ty Gibbs. But the only good thing is you're getting odds of 16-1. But I definitely think we have better options than that. All right. Before I go down the list of contenders, let's see what we got here. Brickyard. Yeah. Brickyard has been boring. There is no question about that. I don't recall last year's race, though. Was it really boring last year as well? Yeah, Brickyard can be extremely boring. So that was a good one. Definitely a good one. Okay. Next up, contenders. Let's work through the contenders here because this is where we want to try to find a winner based on the history the last few years. So Kyle Larson is 6-1. He's from the 11th position, but things are not going well for Kyle Larson lately. I mean, it's unbelievable. This feels like the longest stretch he's ever gone since he's been a relevant top driver, like a championship driver, without winning. Now, he's only had one win here in his career out of 18 races. But in his last 5 races here, he's led 19 or more in all 5. Very impressive. He led 77 laps or more in 4 of the last 5, that's actually very impressive. And he led 256 laps from the pole in his 2021 win, just before Next Gen took over. Last year, he led 90 laps from the 4th position. Finished 4th. But Kyle is just, again, he's not going well. But based on all that, definitely I feel better about Larson than I do Denny Hamlin. And I think we only have those 3 drivers. I think it's Larson, Hamlin, and Reddick to choose from as far as starters, as far as favorites. So I would go Reddick, Larson, and Hamlin in that order. Okay, Austin Cindric. What about Cindric and his possibility of pulling off an upset? Well, if you take a look at his career, it's been pretty bad. But he did lead 60 laps last year. So he's got something going for him. Unfortunately, his average starting position compared to his average finishing position is minus 10 positions. 13 versus 23. 13th versus 23rd. The good news is he led all those laps last year. He is a better driver this year. He's kind of cooled off a little bit lately, but he's still been better overall than last year. And you know, he's actually in a decent position after today. 13th and top 10 in practice. He was actually second fastest in Group 2, which is probably second fastest really of the day, if you think about it. So I think when you're talking about a long shot, those are pretty decent numbers to say, okay, hey, why not? He's not one of my favorite long shots, but he's one of those drivers. He's one of those every week where you can go, hey, I'll throw a buck or two on him. Chase Elliott, meanwhile, is at 12-1, starting 14th. And if you take a look at Chase, he was 12-1 to start the week. So no change there. This was my second pick when the week started. And this is interesting. This is the first driver. We had the 3 picks each, CJ and I. This is the first driver that was part of our picks. So we still have 5 more to go. And this is good news because they're outside the top 10. All right. So this was my second pick earlier in the week. Reason being, he's got that win we mentioned a couple years ago here. And on the bad side, though, he's only had 1 top 5 in his last 13 races here. Okay. Last year, 16th. Not very good. His last 3 starts, his average is 27.3. Last 3 results, 9.3 with a win. So again, 27.3 average, last 3 starts, 9.3 average, last 3 finishes. I'm gaining 16 spots the last 3 years. Meaning this position here of 13th, 14th is perfect. Because if I gain 16 spots, I'm winning the race. Also, when he won his race in 2024, he started 24th and led 39 laps. He's gained 64 positions in the last 3 races with a win. William Byron is next. This is CJ's top pick from Tuesday, and I think William Byron's an excellent play right now. At 10-1, that's a very solid number. I would agree. I think he might even be the best pick right now based on the odds. He's got his win a few years ago. His last 5 years, check this out. Average finish is 5.2. Average start is 8.2. So even though his average start is 8th, he's gaining 3 positions on average over his last 5. He sits there at 10-1. And he's driving a Chevy. That's what we want. Ross Chastain is next at 16th coming in here. And I'm actually shocked. I don't know what I was more shocked with, that Ross Chastain was 35-1 to start the week, or that he's 50-1. Now, I know things have not been going well for Ross Chastain this year. And I know that Talladega is a freak show. But he did finish 7th. And that is and will give him some confidence and something to feel good about when you don't have any top 10s to chew on over the last couple of months. You take every little bit of good you can get, whether it's, oh, maybe now we've got some good things happening. That's all you need, is some positive momentum. Well, Ross Chastain, check this out. I don't know if you recall, but on the last lap in 2024, he actually, on the restart, he actually midway through led Chase Elliott for about a second or two. And then Chase took off and he was in second. And then William Byron came up and wrecked him. Now, I'm not saying it was purposeful. He just wrecked him. So what happens if, so Ross Chastain was basically about to finish second. It's possible Byron could have passed him, but let's just go with it because he was second when he got wrecked. Well, William Byron finished second last year, and he also finished second in 2024. That would have been second the last 3 years where all this craziness has been going on. He started 31st last year, 12th the year before that, 5th the year before that. So it doesn't matter where he starts. He's still finishing second. And on top of that, he's 50-1. What else can I say? Next up, let's go with Eric Jones on the list here, because Jones, as we talked about the other day, CJ, this was his top long shot play. He was 130-1 then. He's 150-1 now. Eric Jones in 14 races at Texas has 8 top 10s and 4 top 5s. This is one of his best tracks. Average start 16.6, average finish 11.8. He's gaining about 5 positions a race, and he was 5th last year, starting 14th. He starts 21st here. The farther back, the better in fantasy. He's definitely an excellent fantasy option. We'll go over it later. And I'd throw a buck on him for sure. Joey Logano. Now, he's down from 25-1. He was 12-1 on Tuesday. He's the defending champ. He has good numbers here, 13 top 5s, couple of wins over his career, but he's only led 36 laps in his last 6. And in his last 3 starts, his average finish is 22.3. And that includes the win. He finished 27th last year. So, yeah, it's not been going good so far for Joey Logano this year, and this does not look like this would be a good week to expect him to go back-to-back. Josh Berry, he's next. I don't think he's a really good option, but I think I got to put him on this board because he did start 7th last year, led 41 laps, and he's a big number. So I'll put him on there. I also will put in Brad Keselowski at 35-1, who was my long shot of the week on Tuesday. And I'm getting the same odds that we had on Tuesday. He's never won here. 7 top 5s, never won here. But the reason I like him is because if you look at it, his average starting position and his average finish over the last 7 races was right around 10th. And I don't really care too much that he's 25th here because, A, Brad Keselowski has not been qualifying good all year. This has been about his average. And B, again, this is Texas, and the farther back, the better fantasy-wise. So I definitely like him more for fantasy than I would to win the race. But I still think overall, if you're looking for long shots, I think he's definitely someone that is worth a look. because he's going to win a race this year. I really believe that. And I think it was last year, I was adamant that he was not going to win a race. But this year, it's like a complete opposite. He's going to win a race. And you know what? It might just happen when we don't expect it. And that's a lot of times that's what happens with long shots is you think, oh, it's going to happen when, he's had a great week, a great Saturday going into Sunday. And there's this reason and that reason. But when you're a long shot, and that's part of the reason that actually it's better, because we want it to be when he's a long shot. We don't want him to win races when he's like, oh, it's 15-1 this week for a driver who hasn't won in like 2 years. Okay, next up is my boy, Ryan Blaney. And I tell you what, I could not be more happy with today for Ryan Blaney, because I'm getting 7 more points because of his day today. He was 9-1 on Tuesday. He's now 16-1. And do we really care that Ryan Blaney is starting 31st? Come on. How is that? When has that ever been an issue for Ryan Blaney? Especially at this track. And I don't really care about the practice either. Okay. Now, the thing I do care about, as we all know, Ryan Blaney hates this track. Despises it. But even with despising it, it's not been a terrible track for him. He's had worse tracks out there statistically over his career. He has 5 career top 10s. He's led over 450 laps here, which is a lot for 17 races for a driver who's sitting there at 16-1. He's got 9 top 10s in his last 12 with 5 top 5s. The other 3 races out of those 12, 28th, 33rd, and 37th. So, yeah, I think that's what you'll see today. I think tomorrow, I think you're going to see a driver that is going to compete for a win in the top 10, or you're going to see, a complete blow up. The thing I am a little bit concerned with is, even though Talladega is a freak show, he has had back-to-back bad results, and Ryan Blaney can be streaky. So if he doesn't go well tomorrow, then I'm probably going to stay away from him for a little bit. I know Ryan Blaney, and like I said, so streaks, definitely a part of his history. In his last 4 years, he finished 3rd last year from the 24th position. He led 17 laps in 2024. Started 7th, finished 33rd. 28th in 2023, started 23rd. But then in 2022, he finished 4th, led 29 laps, started 14th. So I don't think he's a good fantasy option, though. I would not touch Ryan Blaney for fantasy unless I see. Here's the problem: is that you're not. I haven't looked at it, but you're not going to get a good salary cap number on Blaney. If you would, then that'd be different. Like if they adjusted the salary caps every week based on qualifying the way they do with odds, yeah, but they don't do that. So I think you'll get a lot more options out there that will be better. But if you're looking for someone that will be a surprise in a way, I think Ryan Blaney has to be up there at 16-1, because you don't usually at this stage in his career over the last, I don't think he's been 16-1 all year. Bubba Wallace and Dillon, of course, we talked about their issues, and Wallace started out the week at 20-1. He's just got 1 career top 5 here, but he led 111 laps in the 2023 race from the pole. Finished 3rd that race. In his last 3 years, his average start is 6.6. His average finish is 14.3. So that's actually not good fantasy, but now he's starting 37th. So that's why when I talk about Blaney and Wallace, and I think that they may be decent fantasy options, is just because I can see both of those drivers ending up, like, if they're in the top 10, man, you're getting a lot of laps in your resume or your portfolio, whichever way you want to mention it. Okay, now, other drivers, and we're going to go over that when we go over, just to recap, because I didn't mention it. So Ross Chastain was CJ's 2nd best pick. Byron was his 1st. Jones was his 3rd. I went Blaney, Elliott, Keselowski with my top 3 on Tuesday. Now let's take a look at fantasy. Okay, so Yep. See what I'm saying, Blaney? That's the problem right there, is the big number. But you got to take a chance, right? Maybe 31st. You got Reddick here, who, again, if I had to pick one of these drivers, I would pick Reddick, as I mentioned before, over these top three. But let's go down to the bargains, because I always like to start at the bargain basement salary cap shopping early to see what we can get. Ty Dillon, yes, believe it or not, Ty Dillon's an option. In his last 5 races at Texas, the Texas native, his average starting position is 28.8. His average finish is 17.4. So he's gaining almost 11 positions per race, and he's starting 35th. He was 12th last year from the 23rd position. He's definitely an option. Shane Van Gisbergen, last year, 1 race, started 37th, finished 22nd. Okay, so he could be an option. I just don't like the 1 race deal. That's all. When, there's a few other drivers that we can choose from. Here's Eric Jones. Definitely want to put him in there. Gave you his information. There's Dillon. Unfortunately, look, he is starting way back, which is good, but he's got a new engine. And again, if you look at Dillon, he has his win in 2020, but he's only at 37 laps. Okay. The last 2 years, this is important. Again, this has been the spring. The last 2 years, Austin Dillon has finished 8th and 7th, and he started 15th and 19th. Maybe he would have started in the top 20 again if he didn't have an engine issue. So he's gained 19 positions the last 2 years, and he's had top 10s both years, and he's 6,500. So we'll put him in there as an option. Okay. Cindric would be another potential option, but he's starting 13th. So I'm not gaining as much as I am the other guys, and I think the other guys are good options. Now, here's Ross Chastain. I definitely think he's someone we have to keep an eye on with that price too. And there's Wallace. I just can't trust Wallace in fantasy. Every time I put Wallace in there in fantasy, he burns me. And it's usually because he's in a wreck. Okay. Now, what do we got? So we got Ty Dillon, Eric Jones, Austin Dillon, and Ross Chastain, and we got 24,000 left. That's what that means. We can grab 2 of these drivers. And I feel comfortable with that. Now, I do like Byron, though. And Blaney and Reddick. So let's see. Going back to our notes. Once again, I think Reddick you have to look at because he's had those laps. And so, see, that's the other thing with Larson. Larson's really good because of all the laps he's led. So I think Reddick is let's just put it this way. I think you probably have to do this and this. I think that's what you have to do. Because I can't put Blaney in over those guys. I mean, the one thing that Blaney's got the advantage over is the positioning. And what if he won from 31st? Because I still think Brian Blaney has a chance to win this race, but I'd have to be taking a shot. And I'd have to be taking one of these 2 drivers out. And I just don't think I can do that. Again, we look at Reddick, because if I was going to do it, I'd probably take Larson out because Reddick has had no bad luck at all this year. Larson just can't get a break and win a race. But that doesn't mean Kyle Larson, of course, can't have a really good showing and can't lead a lot of laps because that's exactly what he's been doing at this racetrack. But I just feel a lot more comfortable for sure with those 2 drivers than with Ryan Blaney in a fantasy situation. I also, again, I really like William Byron, and I think he's a good option to win the race. So I think you could make a case for Byron. Let's see. I think I even have enough if I wanted to take out Chastain. Yep. See, if I take out Chastain, I can go Blaney or Byron. That would be a tough choice. Those are our top picks from Tuesday. CJ's top pick and my top pick. Boy, this is a tough one. Let's see. Anything else that can change my mind or put me over the top? The laps department, Ryan Blaney is the better driver. Let's see. Byron's led 149 in 11 races. Blaney's led 451 in 17 races. But again, he's only led 40 laps in that range in the last 4 races, Blaney. Byron led 22 laps last year from the second position when he finished 13th. Oh, that would be tough. And of course, Blaney's got a much better situation starting way back to gain a lot of laps. Because basically, if they're both in the top 10, chances are Blaney's going to end up being the better way to go. But I also think that out of those two drivers, the one that stands the chance of actually having a terrible day because he hates this track and something's going to happen to ruin his day early, and he's going to have his first DNF in a while. I don't even know how many he's had this year because I don't even know if he's had many at all. I haven't recalled any. But this would be the track that would do it for him, especially after back-to-back bad results. So there's a lot of that going on in my head, but I hope I've given you guys enough to chew on, because I think, like I said from the very start, there's a lot of different ways you can go. But because you can do this with these drivers here. Now, again, the one thing to keep an eye on is Austin Dillon's situation with the new engine. That would be definitely a problem. But again, Ty Dillon, you don't want to be taking Ty Dillon very often. But as we mentioned with Ty, even though he's not leading laps, his average starting position is basically 29th. He's starting 35th. His average finish is 17th. So that will be very helpful. And then Jones, one more time on Jones. And same thing. He's not going to lead a lot of laps, but he has a much better history regarding results. And he's definitely going to end up a better option for a top 10 or a top 5 based on his history. Now you're going to is more cost effective here, but if I could afford it, then I definitely would want to hold on to Dillon and Jones, and then Ty would be the one that I would drop to see if I could fit someone else in. Like, for instance, if I drop Ty, I got 16 now. So let's see if I went with Byron, that leaves him with 63, and that's still, that's not enough. Because the only we've gone over the drivers down here that really work out. So basically, what does that say? Let's say if we want to go that route, it's probably not going to work out. We need that third driver. Unless, let's see, could we do it? Where's Chastain? If I wanted to go the Chastain route, now I've got 8,200 in the bag. But the problem is the only driver that I could take advantage of that now that I would want to is Keselowski. But not to the point that I think that's the way to go. So I would still rather just take my chances, because that's what you have to do in these games. You have to try to do things that no one else is going to do. Put your lineups together that not many other people are going to duplicate. And see, here I get to go with Byron, Reddick, and Larson, which is very strong. But I've got 3 wild cards down here, and that's the way it is. That's the way it is every week on most occasions. Okay, that's going to wrap it up. So thanks for tuning in. I think we have a very different schedule coming up over the next few weeks because CJ is going to be taking off the week of the All-Star race. So, and Wednesday, we normally air our shows on Tuesday, but CJ he's going to be off on Tuesday, so we are going to move it to Wednesday this week. All right. So check us out on Wednesday when we preview the race at Watkins Glen. And then the week after that is the All-Star week. Now, CJ is going to be off the week to preview the following race, the Coke 600. So what we're going to do is, instead of previewing a race that nobody really cares about, as long as, I don't know if we're going to get lucky enough to get the odds for the Coke 600 that week. We'll get it earlier than normal because it's an off week, basically. So I'm hoping that we'll get the odds early. But if we don't, then we're still going to preview the race. We'll go over everything. And then I will update everybody, of course, the week of the race. I probably won't do a show on that next Tuesday. You'll just see me again on a day like this on Saturday. It's before the big day on Sunday. And then I'll be able to go over some updated information, obviously, including the odds and everything that CJ and I talked about regarding the history of the Coke 600 and everything else leading up to that race. So, So again, Wednesday next week. And then the following week, we will be probably back to our regular day, but we will be previewing the Coke 600 a week early. And then when CJ gets back, it'll be back to our regular schedule on Tuesday for Nashville. Good luck, everybody out there. Let me see if there's any other questions here that I didn't miss. Yes, 100% agree, Andrew. Momentum is a thing. Matter of fact, we talked about it with the Talladega race last week, and it happened again. Is that if you look at Blaney and Logano, they had all sorts of bad luck. And in super speedway racing like that, at those tracks, luck or good luck or bad luck will follow you. And you just have to avoid specific drivers that are on a 3, 4, 5 in a row streak of getting into wrecks, because it's very rare in that type of racing that you can have that type of momentum, negative momentum, and then just like that, you win. Doesn't happen like that. The first step is don't get in a wreck, finish in the top 10, whatever. And as soon as that happens, then we can jump on board. So yeah, that's definitely 100% a thing. I think it's a little bit more pronounced in golf when I do my golf handicapping. But I also think that has to do with the fact that golf, it's really just one person. NASCAR, we know it's not about a driver. We know it's about everything, the team, the engine, everything. And that takes a lot more into consideration. I think top 5 and top 10s are the way to go, and try to hit the outright live late in the race. I know that we have a handicapper who does a great job with our golf coverage, and Brady Cannon. And Brady, most of the time, only wants to do top 10, top 5 wagering, and he'll do head-to-head. He likes to do that. He tries to avoid picking winners because it's very rare. It's a very hard thing to do in golf. So NASCAR, very similar. And I would say it's all depending on your budget, really. I mean, if you have a bigger budget and you're a very patient handicapper and you just want to play the long game for the entire season instead of, hey, if I don't, I'm in this to try to make some money every few weeks. If you're in that kind of deal, no. I mean, top 5, top 10s, the odds are going to be too low, and it's going to take you a while. So it all depends. Do I think it's the smarter way to go? Sure, of course it is. But it also takes a lot longer. So, and I would definitely, if you're going to do top 5 and top 10, like you said, the only thing with also doing the win in the race and waiting into live late racing would be, for the most part, not this week, but for the most part, it's the same thing. You're losing a lot of value on your odds. So while you know more, it's also NASCAR, and you just never know. Like, you could think going into the final stage, I know who the better driver is. And then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, after you made a big pick on a driver that was, because if you know, chances are the odds are pretty low. And then you go ahead and you put a wager on a driver that's like 3-1 or 5-1 or something. And then, whatever, he gets into a wreck or there's a penalty on pit road. So many things can happen because the best drivers don't always win. So I would just, again, if I'm going to do the top 5 and top 10 wagering, I would just add a few bucks to win. That's all before the race. And this week, absolutely for sure, I would take a look at the live wagering. I'd still bet the race beforehand, but I would do the live wagering and see if you could take advantage of it. And I know it might be hard because there's going to be a driver or two in the beginning of the race tomorrow that's going to be really dominant looking. And then who knows, maybe for the first time in 3 years, the dominant driver or the first half will be the dominant driver in the second half. But we can't go by that, or at least I don't go by that. Everybody has their own handicapping strategy. So whatever your strategy is, all I can do is give you mine and give you a whole bunch of other input, and then you do with what you want there. But for my strategy is I'm going to follow what happened the last 3 years religiously. And then when the time comes that I'm wrong and it goes back, well, then I just follow that. And then, but I am definitely, and if I'm doing live wagering, I'm ignoring what happened in the first half. I'm probably hoping what we see in the top 10 drivers stay the same for the first half. The odds continue to go up even more, maybe for drivers that are 15-1, maybe they're 25-1. And yeah, and of course you want to see what's going on. Like, so let's say you are interested in someone like Ryan Blaney. I mean, I do wonder where his odds would be if he was in midway through the race, if he was sitting there at 12th, with a half a race to go. Like, how much would his odds drop? Would he go down from 16 to 10? Probably. But I might be okay with that. And I don't think it would go any further if you got the Larsons and the Reddicks and so forth that are leading laps and doing well. You're still going to have decent odds. So, yeah, I think that's definitely something that you have to consider with Texas. No question about it. Great job, Hunter. You got him at 60-1. Beautiful. We did not pick him on Tuesday, but we definitely liked him as a long shot. He was someone to watch for sure, and he looks the part now. I mean, he looks. I will say this: normally, the reason we bet on Tuesday is because we want to take advantage of some of those opportunities on Tuesday with the odds. So, look, if someone said to me, "Oh, I wasn't able to get the 60-1, and it's 35-1 now." Because a lot of times I'll be like, well, you've lost your value now. It may not be worth it to do it. But in that circumstance, I would be like, you know what? 35-1 is still pretty good. And he's on the front row. And he practiced in the top 10. So even if you missed out on 60-1, for the viewers that are watching, hit it, man. 35-1 is still a big number. Okay. And I agree with you, Hunter, regarding the top 10. You got him there at 60-1. You might as well back that up with almost 4-1 on the top 10 for Suarez. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up. Again, you can check out our show on Wednesday when CJ and I go through the race, another road course race at Watkins Glen. And best of luck if you guys are doing fantasy and all that other stuff. We'll see you guys again next week.